be vaccinated. If I was also immunocompromised, I would be scared to be on an airplane right now. People around me weren't wearing a mask.
All this coming as COVID infections are on the rise and pediatric COVID hospitalizations are up. Moderna is saying it hopes to offer a booster in the fall that will combine the original vaccine with protection specifically against the Omicron variant. In eastern Ukraine, the assault has begun. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby.
The Russians are doing what we call shaping. They're trying to set the conditions for more aggressive, more overt, and larger ground maneuvers in the Donbass.
ABC's James Longman is there.
Outside the city of Zaporizhia in the southeast of Ukraine, Russian forces are about 15 miles from where I am now. And just about every man in every town and village in this region has gone to the front line because President Zelensky says Russia's second advance has begun.
Explosions targeting schools in Kabul, Afghanistan this morning. At least 6 people were killed, more than a dozen injured, including students. The Shiite Muslim neighborhood where it happened has been a target in the past of Afghanistan's Islamic State affiliate. You're listening to ABC News.
Stress. It never seems to end when you owe money to the IRS. What about the years of unfiled tax returns? Have you tried another tax service and gotten nowhere? Then you need Tax Alliance. Why? Years of being A+ rated with a Better Business Bureau with no consumer complaints sets them apart. Call 800-987-1097. That's 800-987-1097. Don't wait until the IRS attacks your wages, bank account, your home or pension, and even your Social Security check. Tax Alliance specializes in IRS tax relief programs, including the Fresh Start Initiative, which can finally free yourself from IRS debt. Their tax professionals can file returns, fight the IRS to substantially lower your IRS debt, or possibly even have it forgiven. If you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes, have unfiled tax returns, or have a payment plan and are still frustrated, call 800-987-1097. That's 800-987-1097.
Tax Alliance, your tax resolution solution.
Investigators in Florida are learning more about a deadly amusement park accident. ABC's Jim Ryan has the latest.
He was only 14 years old, but Tyree Sampson was 6'5" and over 300 pounds. He should not have been allowed to ride the Orlando Freefall, but Florida Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Freed says
manual adjustments had been made to the sensor that allowed the harness opening to be almost double that of the normal restraint opening range.
And when the ride came to a stop, Tyree slipped out and fell to his death. Investigators want to know how long before the tragedy those adjustments had been made. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
The Biden administration is now putting a ban in place on testing anti-satellite missiles. Vice President Kamala Harris.
Simply put, these tests are dangerous, and we will not conduct them.
Russia recently blew up one of its own satellites and created so much space junk that it threatened the International Space Station. And a new warning out about hackers attacking people trying to upgrade their computers to Windows 11. The tech site Bleeping Computer says cyber thieves have put together a web page that looks like Microsoft's update site and comes up when people search for Windows 11 upgrades. But instead, it installs a virus on your computer and can steal all sorts of information. Experts say the safest way to upgrade, do it from the upgrade setting within Windows itself. This is ABC News.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job?
Not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
Or a mother who's in between jobs
and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
I'm Sherry Preston, ABC News.
Good morning. A cool April day in the forecast, but lots of sunshine. High temperatures in the upper 50s to lower 60s and windy as well. Tonight, a threat of a frost. Clear skies with low temperatures falling into the mid to upper 30s, but it should be our last concern for frost of the season. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, starting a warm-up. High temperatures in the mid to upper 60s with a warm-up continuing through the weekend. I'm meteorologist Kat Campbell in the Weather Center.
It's time now for My Great America with Jim and Butch, a conversation about positive things about this great country. And now here are Jim and Butch.
And a very pleasant good morning, everybody, and welcome, and good morning, Butch. Good morning to you as well, on the road, somewhere up in wherever you are.
Okay. Now, that sounds a little bit like back in high school when my mother, when we had landline phones, I would call in, she would say, "Now, where are you?" Right. And I always knew that voice of authority, so it just came through right now, Jim. Of course, I'm under your authority there at WCAB. I'm up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's where I come to just help out my mother and connect with my cousin Steve, who's got a hobby farm, and we're talking about creating a nonprofit. It's going to be like a petting zoo and a place for children that have special needs and the like. So I'll be back tomorrow night and looking forward to being at my church and being back in the studio on Thursday, and looks like we'll have somebody call in on Thursday, and you and I will talk about that. But how are you doing? By the way, it's cool up here. It's a beautiful day, but it's cool.
It is
What's
cool
it like
here.
there?
It's 41 here. The sun is coming out now. It's going to get up into the 50s, but it was a cool morning, and tonight they say we may have some frost.
Interesting. All right, so what that means is that there's this huddled set of conversations that happen in homes where people say things like, "Bring in the geraniums."
Yes.
Right? Get them inside. Jim, do you have flowers at your home?
We do have some flowers. Faye loves flowers, and we try to set some out. We have some growing around the house and in the back, and we have an old wheelbarrow, a rusty old wheelbarrow that we set some flowers out in. Is that a right word, out in?
I have no idea. I listen, you, Todd, Tracy, and Lou are the ones that are teaching me North Carolina. I have no idea the right way to say it.
Well, let me say that we put some flowers in an old wheelbarrow. Maybe that's a better way to put that.
Okay, well, don't try to be more sophisticated because you think I came from a different place.
By the way, how is your mom doing?
Thank you for asking. Sure. So she's got a great primary care physician. I think most people know, at almost 90, she turns 90 in July, and she listens to programs. So I've got to be very circumspect with that. The fact she's not 90. So she had a COVID experience here a couple of months ago. She lost weight. She lost her sense of taste and smell, and it's been hard for her. So I came up here. I take very seriously, Jim, biblical injunctions. And when the Bible talks about honoring your parents, that your days may be long, it's the command with a promise. And I know we talk about political things, we talk about Rutherford County things. This is a really important spiritual lesson. We need to love, respect, appreciate, and encourage and learn from our elders, Jim. I have the opportunity with, who Gerald Sutherland is.
Yes,
Gerald
I do.
Lyndon.
I sure do, yes.
Yeah, and they are just precious, and they are so important in my life. They, of course, have a number of different ministries at my church, Word of Faith Fellowship, but one of the ministries is to the elders, to the elderly people in our tribe, and I love spending time with older people that love Jesus. They have so much to share, and there's so many ways to encourage them. And I'm sure your church at Florence Baptist, you've got an elders group, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of elders there, and some of them are in my not in my Sunday school class. They're not elderly, but they're already, many of them are all retired already and doing things with their grandkids. So it is you're right. It is really nice to be able to sit and talk to them and get words of wisdom from them, because they've been there and done that in many cases and learned from it, so they can share that information on with us. I consider myself younger, but I'm older than some of them, but it's I still have a young heart.
Well, you certainly have a young heart, and Jim, you are light and life to a county that needs the brilliance of what God put in you. And people like Carl and Cassandra Parton, I love them so much, and they're in that class.
They are in
that class.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and you know what's really funny? I have to say this. I don't have to say it, but I'm led to say it. I bump into them in many different places to the point where I had to tell them, Mr. I can't. He's an elder, and I respect him, and I can't call them necessarily by their first name. So I tell them, Mr. Parton, Miss Parton, Cassandra, I'm not stalking you. We bump into each other, Jim, all over the county to the point where it's become kind of funny. It's like, okay, why are you at the Pie Safe right now? Why are you at Small Town Coffee Roasters right now? I bump into them a lot, and they're sweet people.
They're wonderful people. Boy, they love everybody. They do anything in the world for you, too.
Yeah, and Jim, you've watched that Parton Lumber Company through the years. They're really an anchoring kind of enterprise in our county, aren't they?
They really are, and bigger and larger than folks really know because they expand so much and they've done so much around the world, around the nation, and folks don't realize that. They're such a big operation, and they've grown from a sawmill to where they are today.
You know, the thing I love about that story, when I talk to people like Birgit at the Economic Development, you know, our dear friend Clark Poole, the former director of the Chamber of Commerce, Jim, I really have a lot of hope for our county going forward. And, of course, Josh Farmer, the founder and CEO of FreightWorks, that's just one expression of a locally incubated company that's trying to really help the county get bigger and better and to do it appropriately. And so against a lot of naysayers, you know, people that go up and down Main Street in Rutherfordton and actually there's a better way to say it, Ralston. Right?
Ralston. There you go.
Okay, well, I'm trying. I don't want to be disingenuous. I am trying to learn how to say it right. But you know what? I really believe for better days ahead in our county, and you have hope and optimism too, don't you?
Absolutely. And you mentioned FreightWorks. FreightWorks is going to be a dynamic major part of Rutherford County. They are now, but they're going to continue to grow. And Trelleborg Industries, they brought their corporate office here a number of years ago. So Rutherford County has been recognized in that respect. And we have folks like the Parton Lumber Company and Gilkey Lumber Company that just expands a lot of ground area up there and serving the nation and around the world even. So we have companies like that people may not realize are stationed right here in Rutherford County. That's going to be a threshold to other things that are coming in the future that we just got to stay in anticipation for it. I'm excited when I hear about and talk about the future of Rutherford County because it is indeed exciting.
Well, and I agree, Jim. And you know what's so interesting? You know, my conversations with people like Ted Alexander and Ralph Heiss and, you know, other political folks, what's so great is that our county has so much land and opportunity for development, right? We're a huge mass of land, aren't we?
We are indeed. Of course, I tell folks I'm a happy camper now that my favorite Chick-fil-A is located in Forest City, so I'm a happy camper now.
Well, and of course, Chick-fil-A is just one of other things that are coming, and, you know, there may be a Dunkin' Donuts around the corner and Hobby Lobby and some other things.
Cookout's almost ready to open.
I'm sorry?
Cookout almost ready to open. They're hiring folks now. So.
Right. So Cookout almost ready to open. We just need to make sure that we're, you know, being disciplined when it comes to the calories we put in this. That's a different conversation. But you know what, Jim? The thing I love in my 4 years now and going on 5 months, that's, you know, 4 years and 5 months. I've not been here for decades like so many have been. But you know what I love? I love that God, I believe, has his hand, his fingerprints on Rutherford County. And look, we've got elections that are coming forward. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We got, you know, sadly, we got people slinging some mud on social media. And, you know, I've had some people ask me, Jim, Butch, what is it you look for? You, Butch, what is it you look for in a candidate? We got candidates for DA, sheriff, county commissioner, judge, school board. What else do we have that I'm missing?
House and Senate.
Yeah. We've got folks that are running for office. So I've had people ask, Butch, what do you look for? And so, Jim, it's really simple, but I jotted down the things I look for in a candidate. Is it okay if I quickly share that?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So this is what I wrote in my journal. Can I trust them? Is their integrity clear? Are they servants of the people? Do they admit their failures? Do they value life? Are they competent using God's gifts and skills to lead? Are they collaborating in nature? Are they gentle when attacked? Are they insightful? And do they love people? That was what I wrote in my journal.
Those are excellent points to think about when we look at our candidates that are running for office. Those are excellent.
Well, and I keep thinking, Jim. Did you run for? Have you run for office before? By the way.
Yes, I have.
Okay. Are you going to run again?
Probably not. No.
Well, I'm going to say this publicly. If you ever run for office and you need a campaign manager, there's a guy named Butch that will be right there by your side.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, well, so you're not prepared to declare your candidacy for something right now?
Not today.
Okay, not today. Folks, you heard that. Not today. He didn't say not ever. We both loved Ronald Reagan and his leadership, right?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I'm going to read something that is so precious that he said once. Jim, what did you value in him as a president?
I think I liked Ronald Reagan being from the country. I liked his hometown flavor of dealing with people. He was a people person. He knew how to identify right in with them, regardless how crusty they might be. He was able to win them over with his humor and his charm and his personality, and he was sincere about what he wanted the country to do, and I like that sincerity. He was really, Todd one time said to me, I'm not quite sure about the words that you use, Butch. I use the word inimitable, which basically means without imitation. When you refer to somebody as inimitable, it means other people may come close, but they're not really going to be the real deal. And you know what? With Ronald Reagan, I think so much of what the world longs for is just clarity and purpose. And certainly we've seen that. We see it every day with the prime minister there in Ukraine against the backdrop of horrific things. And, of course, Ronald Reagan helped the country navigate so much. And, Jim, I found something recently. It was Ronald Reagan's comments at the National Prayer Breakfast, February 2nd, 1984. Do you mind if I read this? Yes, I would. I'd love you to.
Okay, all right. So President Ronald Reagan commented on the Roman Colosseum. People know that iconic Roman Colosseum. Well, Ronald Reagan, the president, commented at the National Prayer Breakfast. I was there, February 2nd, 1984. This power of prayer can be illustrated by the story that goes back to the 4th century. This is Ronald Reagan speaking. The monk, Telemachus, living in a little remote village, spending most of his time in prayer. One day he thought he heard the voice of God telling him to go to Rome. Weeks and weeks later, he arrived at a time of a festival in Rome. He followed a crowd into the Roman Colosseum, and then there, in the midst of this great crowd, he saw the gladiators come forth, stand before the emperor and say, "We who are about to die salute you." And he realized they were going to fight to the death for the entertainment of the crowds. He cried out, "In the name of Christ, stop!" And his voice was lost in the tumult there in the great Colosseum. Reagan continued at the National Prayer Breakfast. And as the games began, he made his way down through the crowd and climbed over the wall and dropped to the floor of the arena. Suddenly, the crowd saw this scrawny little figure making his way out to the gladiators and saying over and over again, "In the name of Christ, stop." And they thought it was part of the entertainment. And at first they were amused, but then when they realized it wasn't, they grew belligerent and angry. Reagan added, and as he was pleading with the gladiators, "In the name of Christ, stop," one of them plunged his sword into his body. And as he fell to the sand of the arena in death, his last words were, "In the name of Christ, stop." And suddenly, a strange thing happened. The gladiators stood looking at this tiny form lying in the sand. A silence fell over the Colosseum. And then, someplace up in the upper tiers, an individual made his way to an exit and left. And the others began to follow. And in the dead silence, every single person left the Colosseum. That was the last battle to the death between gladiators in the Roman Colosseum. Never again did anyone kill or did men kill each other for the entertainment of the crowd. Reagan ended one tiny voice that could hardly be heard above the tumult. "In the name of Christ, stop." It is something we could be saying to each other throughout the world today. Jim, I was there in 1984, and I heard Ronald Reagan utter those words, and I'm grateful that God brought it back to remembrance, because in our county, our state, our country, in the world, those words ring so true, don't they?
It sounds like something he would say. I could hear him almost saying that as you were reading that story, and it's amazing that you were there to hear that. Another thing I liked about Ronald Reagan is that he did not hesitate to mention Christ and God in his life. He said after he was shot and almost assassinated, he said, "I'm sure God is not through with me yet." So he was healed, and he went on to be a great president, better president than he was beforehand.
Exactly. And, I think I've shared this on My Great America before. And by the way, Jim, we're I think close to 170 episodes,
wow,
if you can believe, of My Great America. And, I'm not sure that anybody is going to listen to them all in sequence, but I pray every single time we get on the air together that God will influence what we share, because it says in Scripture, and we're taught at my church, Word of Faith Fellowship, we'll be justified or condemned by our words. So, Jim, every time you and I get on the air together, it's with a sense of it's not our words. It's only what God speaks through us that's going to really matter for eternity, and that certainly is my heart. But, I want to say this real quickly. I had the opportunity, I think I shared this on a program before. I actually, when I started out in consulting for nonprofits in the 80s, I had an office, little office, and just a secretary and me. And I started a little company called DevCom, DEVCOM, Development Communications. And one of my first clients was the American Mental Health Fund. I don't believe they're around anymore, but it was a nonprofit that was started by Jack Hinckley, who was the father of John Hinckley, who shot the president. And I had the opportunity to meet John, who shot the president. He used to spend time down in Williamsburg after his time there at St. Elizabeth for decades in the psychiatric facility. Got to know his dad, traveled to South America with his father. And I helped with the assistance of somebody named Richard Viggory, who a lot of people know as being really the architect of the modern-day religious right through his direct response marketing. So I used to spend time with John Hinckley's father, Jack, and Richard Viggory, talking about what we could do to help people understand that there are folks that deal with mental illness. So, you know, it's a small world, isn't it?
Interesting story. I know the name Richard Viggory. I remember that name very well.
Yeah, well, and he of course, connected with a guy named Jerry Falwell, and they created the Moral Majority. And then back in the day, you know, there are folks that don't believe that some of the travail and just the travel of my past, Jim. You know, I used to work very closely with Pat Robertson, even though I was a closet Democrat, and I've said this a number of times before. I learned what it meant to be born again when I came to my church. You know, Jesus said we were born to be born again, and we have to believe and receive and repent, trust, and obey, and I've been given the opportunity to do that. And you know what, as it relates to these local elections, Jim, you know, for sheriff and DA and county commissioner and judge and just all the different positions that people are pursuing, I really am trusting, and I know this is your heart, that truth will prevail so that voters will go in and vote with a strong conviction of who God told them to vote for. And, you know, so there's so many things that I respect about you, Jim. I've had some people that have said, you know, Butch, you are so admiring and affirming of Jim. I've had people say that, and I tell them it's because he is suited up. I'm talking about you, third person, suited up and shown up and just, you know, been there to be salt and light in the dark and bland world of our county for so many years. And Jim, whatever influence I have in the county, Butch has in the county, it's only because in a small way I'm recognizing the importance of standing on the shoulders of others like you. And so we're going into these elections. I'm really encouraging people to go to God, ask them who should they vote for. And, you know, I pray between now and the election, the primary on the 17th, that any temptation people have to get down in the mud, they will just avoid that. Don't you?
Oh, I hope so. I hope they will. There's no place for that in our society with dirty elections. I want it to be healthy and above board, and let's face the truth of who they are and what they're doing.
Right. And you know what? We need to remember, God has something to say about every single circumstance of our life. My life has been revolutionized when I get in God's Word every single day. And, Jim, this morning I found a very curious verse. We'll end with this. It's curious, but it's powerful. It's Proverbs 16:7. You know what it says? When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Proverbs 16:7. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. I didn't say that. Jim Bishop didn't say that. WCAB didn't say that. The living God, who's the writer of the Proverbs, said that. It's Proverbs 16:7. Go take a look. You know what, Jim? As we pray, we hope, and we work, we can make Rutherford County great, North Carolina great, America great. God bless America.
God bless America. See you soon.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us for My Great America with Jim and Butch. Join us each Tuesday and Thursday morning at 9:05 for this enlightening program on 100.9 FM and 590 AM. It's My Great America with Jim and Butch.